Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
This show is brought to you by Audible. They are the leading provider of spoken audio information and entertainment. You know I'm a huge Audible fan because you can listen to audiobooks whenever and wherever you want. Whether you're at the beach, the gym, or stuck in traffic, there's nothing quite like Audible. Go to audiblepodcast.com/Lutz and sign up today. You are listening to the FinancialSurvivalNetwork.com. I'm Kerry Lutz on 1230 WBZT. Well, we are living in the surveillance state now. All notions of democracy, civil rights, all out the window. Right, left, we need to get over those distinctions now. They mean absolutely nothing. Certainly, the puppet masters of the state couldn't care less about them, and you shouldn't either. That's why we've got Heidi Boghosian of the National Lawyers Guild on with us now to talk about it. Heidi, welcome back to the Financial Survival Network.
Wonderful to be here.
Right, so what's going on now? I mean, these rights that we have enshrined in the Bill of Rights seem to be shredded daily. And where's it all going to end?
We're certainly in a period in which every day we seem to be reading about a new program, be it government or corporate related, or the two of them together, showing how they are monitoring our very communications. And recently we found out that the Drug Administration has been, for the last 6 years, getting staff members from AT&T to sit beside their staff and monitor all calls that go through AT&T switches, not just those made by AT&T customers. And some of the calls date back 26 years. The program is called Hemisphere. It's, in one respect, has the legitimate purpose of looking for drug traffickers who switch phones very quickly. But on the other hand, they're amassing, as the NSA is doing, large quantities in their Hemisphere database of information on Americans, absent the Fourth Amendment's, requirement that there be probable cause that criminal activity is happening. So I think we're going to continue to see more of these revelations. We also learned that the NSA has spied on Al Jazeera, the media outlet. That should be of concern to people who really care about a free press in this country, because the free press is here to really hold the government in check. And it seems more and more that as corporations work closely with the government in conducting surveillance and making a big business of monitoring individuals on a daily basis, that we have fewer and fewer checks on the executive branch. And we even see a judiciary and a legislative branch that aren't really doing their job in terms of providing that balance that the framers of the Constitution intended.
Yeah, I mean, this right to privacy, I guess when everyone kind of lived out in the wilderness, it wasn't as big a deal perhaps. But now that we have the internet and that all our communication networks are interconnected, and we've got all this technology that allows you to see inside of people's dwellings, it takes on a more important note. But they can just look at anything. Just look at something like license plate scanners. You drive down the street and they scan your license plate, and they keep this data sometimes forever. There doesn't seem to be any great safeguards or controls on maintaining and protecting your data there. And it just goes on, Heidi. And then they're supervising prosecutions based on data that was purportedly accumulated under national security pretenses, and they're using them now for prosecutions where they're not even telling you how they got the data, and they're prosecuting people, putting them in jail based on that data. There's something really wrong in society here, really wrong with the government, and if this isn't a call to really scale back large portions of the government and get them out of your business, out of your everyday affairs, I don't know what is.
The issue of stored data is of significant concern, and it should be something that people worry about, because who knows in 5 years what the cause that the government and corporate partners may identify as a so-called threat, either to national security or otherwise. Having that data allows them to go back and sift through your past history. Now, it's also worth noting one of the dangers of amassing so much data and storing it is that the government oversight agencies, and there are several, have admitted that a lot of the information collected has a high percentage of inaccuracies in it. So that John Doe, for example, may not be the same John Doe who has a criminal history record attached to his electronic dossier, but there's no way that we can go in, see what our records are, and correct them. Similarly, access by private individuals who are maybe contracting for the government to this information means that someone who might not have as good intentions as Edward Snowden did might go in and manipulate that data so that he could go into your health records and change information, or your financial records. Without transparency and knowledge of the limits that government should be placing on safeguarding the information that they do collect, aside from the fact that they're collecting far too much of it, people should be concerned that often information gathered under the name of national security can be used for insidious purposes. And that's why the Constitution has a Fourth and First Amendment. It's to really ensure that the government doesn't abuse its power. That's what we should be worried about.
Yeah, I mean, they've even got this thing that came out that that they're spying on their girlfriends at the NSA and their lovers, and nobody seems to be able to control the people working there. I mean, look how easy it was for a guy like Snowden to go pull out massive amounts of data. So Snowden, to me, and I think to you, is a hero because his heart was in the right place. If a guy like Snowden, whose heart's in the right place, can do it and do it so easily, think of somebody whose heart isn't in the right place, what he or she can do, the amount of damage they could do to people who they don't like for whatever reason.
It's certainly true that information in the wrong hands can be used. Examples that people are familiar with, of course, are blackmailing someone or making their life very difficult, identity theft, things that we hear about all the time. But again, who knows what else they can do with the information. I think it's important to realize that there are so many federal and local laws on the books in this country, many of them woefully outdated, that if our government wants to target you for something, saying you've broken the law, especially now with the Internet and the harsh laws that really haven't kept abreast with more sophisticated technology and Internet use, Judge Alex Kozinski from California said that the average citizen is, quote, probably a federal criminal thanks to the criminalization of so many types of otherwise non-threatening behavior, from tax and regulatory infractions to things like violations of employee codes of conduct. So I think, aside from the very real privacy issues that people may say they have nothing to hide if this is done in the name of national security, there are insidious uses, again, that can be done with information. And the less that we resist and sort of outcry publicly about these kinds of things, the harder it becomes to really ensure that our First and Fourth Amendments protections are secured. So I think it's a window of opportunity right now for people to speak out, talk to their legislators, and say, you know, we don't want everything that we do monitored. It is difficult, as you said, given the level to which we use technology to conduct our daily operations. But there are ways to opt out of being tracked online by marketers who want to get your business, and people can exercise a level of caution about signing on to loyalty cards, or, filling out product information forms and giving away personal information. I think it starts with being aware of these systems and then deciding what we want to keep private and working to make sure that happens.
Yeah, it's really kind of scary here. And, part of it is that you don't know what's being monitored and what isn't. And then, therefore, you have to assume that everything you do is being monitored. And then it's you can't even check out of the grid. And then you get into the case where we used to call it prior restraint, where you start thinking, okay, now what I'm saying is going to be monitored, and I don't know if somebody's listening. Well, no one's listening, but a machine might tag what I have to say and direct it to somebody who might listen to it. So I better just shut up and not say anything that could be deemed offensive, that could get me onto the radar screen, because then I might have the IRS, the DEA, or a whole bunch of other agencies breathing down my neck. So I'm better off just shutting up altogether and keeping my mouth shut, because I got a family, I've got standing in the community, I've got a whole bunch of other things going for me that I just don't want to jeopardize.
This is the heart of the issue. The so-called chilling effect that omnipresent surveillance has on the exercise of free speech. When we know that there are surveillance cameras on every corner, every building, every ATM, everything we do is scrutinized either electronically or on closed-circuit TV, it changes the way we act. And it changes the way we communicate. We start to think more along the lines of what corporations want us to do. We watch how we act. We watch what we say. And it has, I think, really a negative effect on interactions with other human beings. And when you look at the first level of who the government targets, usually it's activists or people who criticize government and corporate policies. They're the ones who are vilified. They're the ones who negative stereotypes are spread about because they're going against the grain and advocating for changes in policies. So when they not only monitor these individuals, but infiltrators go to their groups. We see this in the news every day. It harkens back to the COINTELPRO era. But it's a little more sophisticated in that we have the technology to accompany sort of old-fashioned surveillance techniques and the ability to respond to things and embed spying technology in every single thing that we do. The chilling effect, when it prevents journalists, for example, from writing about things that they find out, or when it intimidates them into cultivating anonymous confidential sources, is when we really lose out as a society, because again, the watchdog function of a free press is gone, and all the messages we hear are those that the government and corporations want us to hear. Very dangerous to democracy.
Hey, and want to talk more about that up next on the Financial Survival Network. We're here with Heidi Boghosian and on 1230 WBZT. I want to welcome our new sponsor, Audible. I've been listening to audiobooks from them for over 5 years now. I am a huge Audible fan. In fact, I've bought multiple Platinum memberships. Platinum membership, you buy 25 audiobooks at a time. I just got done listening to the first 3 or 4 books of the Jack Reacher series, the one you probably saw, or maybe you didn't, in the theater, Tom Cruise movie. I mean, just a wonderful book, wonderful series, expertly narrated, and so many times I'm in the car, I get sick of listening to music or news or the radio. I just put my iPod on, plays the book, and makes that trip go by so quickly. To me, this is one of the great things of the information revolution of the internet is that you can get over 100,000 books on your iPad or iPod or iPhone instantly. Another thing that they have is courses on Audible, the Modern Scholar series. And I've listened to lectures about World War I, Shakespeare, nanotechnology, detective novels. It's so enlightening. To me, Audible is a must-have killer app for the iPhone, the iPad, for my computer, wherever I am. I'm always downloading these books. Like I say, they're a sponsor, so check them out. They've got a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial membership. Just sign up at www.audiblepodcast.com/Lutz, Lutz. Again, audiblepodcast.com/Lutz. Sign up today. Like I say, this to me is a dream sponsor. These are exactly the types of things that I like to pass on to you because I'm such a fanatical, over-the-top Audible user. 5-6 years I've been listening, hundreds of books. I used to think I was a well-read person, and it's a little strange when somebody asks you, did you read that book? And you have to say, well, somebody actually read it to me, but they actually did a better job than I could have, so I don't mind it. But my friend Sean Perger up in Vancouver, he listens to almost as many as I do, and he can't get enough. I know you're going to love this company, love their service. I do. So check them out. audiblepodcast.com/Lutz. And we're back. I'm Kerry Lutz on the FinancialSurvivalNetwork.com. We're with Heidi Boghosian of the National Lawyers Guild on 1230 WBZT. And Heidi, you almost described me to the T when you're talking about the people. I've never kind of thought of myself as an activist. I'm not out on the street corner saying burn down, the White House, but, I'm a troublemaker. I'm an outlier. I don't like things the way they are. I'm always looking for things to be improved for the people with the people who don't have a voice to have a voice, for the people who are being wronged to have their wrongs righted. And, I don't want to have to think about what I'm saying. I don't want to hurt anybody. But if I hurt some people's feelings and Cass Sunstein doesn't like it, I don't want him shutting off my microphone. And I think you feel a lot the same, right? And you were always thinking that the threats to what you were saying were going to come from the right. And I'm always thinking the threats to what I'm saying are coming from the left. But really, they're coming from up high, from people who don't want us saying anything that's going to upset the status quo and their little power games, right?
Exactly right. One of my heroes, the late lawyer Arthur Kanoy, who argued the case of U.S. v. U.S. District Court in the early 70s, which basically held that Richard Nixon was not above the law in wiretapping Americans. Arthur used to say, and others have said this, that really the answer to either hateful speech or distasteful speech or things we disagree with is not silence, it's more speech. And this brings up the issue that's troubling of the Internet, because the founders of the Internet, which has transformed all of our lives so dramatically and so quickly, they envisioned a pathway to greater speech and more communication and more imagination. In fact, what's happened is we've seen really unprecedented crackdown on free speech with President Obama, a former constitutional scholar, saying he was going to have a transparent administration, going after journalists and Internet users who maybe download documents, and making, in his own administration, more documents classified than ever before, which has its whole separate set of issues, but creating, in effect, a climate of secrecy, and one in which it becomes dangerous and even possibly criminal to speak out in the way that you refer to. And I think that rabble-rousers come from all political parties, anyone who's had or experienced an injustice, whether it's polluted drinking water or cutbacks in school funding, school mothers and children who want to fight against something, they can't do that the way we used to be able to, because the very act of speaking out has become criminalized in many ways. And to threaten journalists with potential charges of espionage is a very dangerous state of affairs, I think, for this country. And we really need to look at the free flow of information. Other countries look to us as a leader in First Amendment protections, and it seems to me that it's slipping through our fingers, the very fingers we use to type on our internet.
Yeah, and did you see this group of people that the president appointed to oversee the intelligence agencies and the data mining and the whole NSA monitoring group? It's all insiders. There's Cass Sunstein and a whole bunch of intelligence insiders who are responsible for the very situation that we find ourselves in. There's no real interest in protecting the people's rights. It's all about furthering the intrusion into your life, into your privacy, and it's a farce. And I'm totally sickened by it. And there's no great outrage. I think there's a seething anger in the public at large that you're totally sickened and totally enraged by Big Brother sticking his nose into your life. But there's no willingness, other than perhaps the Tea Party, who's willing to get out there and just say, enough, we're not going to take it anymore. There's no Howard Beale moment where people are sticking their heads out the window saying, we're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore.
Right.
I think we could get to that moment quickly.
I hope we get to that moment.
I do too.
I agree. We need an independent evaluation of the NSA surveillance programs. We don't need insiders doing that. That's one of the problems, is that even judges on the FISA court are saying that what's happening is that we're having secret interpretations of the FISA laws and other laws that the government is using to justify this mass collection. And these judges say that the way intelligence is being gathered is outdated, in need of oversight, and oversight is missing. And I do hope that we have not only ordinary citizens yelling out that window, but members of Congress need to step up and say, we have taken an oath to uphold the Constitution. And the way it's operating, this insider, really cozy relationship where there's a revolving door between business and government in conducting intelligence, and both are benefiting nicely from this arrangement. It's very lucrative for big business. That needs to stop.
Yeah, I mean, look, Snowden was a contractor, okay, for a contractor, basically. He was a subcontractor, if you will. And for him to have all this unfettered access, and he himself said he could listen to any conversation between any two people virtually in the world. He could go into anybody's email account as long as he had an email address and look at anything, and go to any website pretty much and intrude into anything without any judge in the world saying no.
That's right. And as the Washington Post reported a couple of years ago, there are nearly 2,000 private security firms full of people like Ed Snowden in terms of their access to information. Let's hope that they have the integrity that he has demonstrated. But, 70% of our intelligence is performed through private sector contracts. Enormous amounts of money just came out in the news a couple of days ago, is dedicated to the so-called black budget intelligence. And I think it's just the tip of the iceberg. As more comes out, we're going to see more money, more collusion between government and corporations. And really, I can't imagine what sectors of our lives are not being monitored right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's not even get into the fact that we spent trillions of dollars ostensibly making the homeland more secure. And the fact is, very few people have died from these terrorist attacks. I mean, we've just spent boatloads of money, and we've never gone back and reassessed whether or not it was all worth it, this war on terror. And now that the erosion in the rights has become glaringly apparent, that there's no accountability among the government or the military-industrial complex, the military intelligence complex, we need to really have a debate on this and open the books. We need to know everything. And then we need to reassess and say, is it all worth it? Or do we just pack this in, take the loss? Is it time to hold or fold or run? And my vote is for run. Lay your money down and just write it off, because, we're just going down this path blindlessly, Heidi, and what have you gotten for your money here other than a complete loss of privacy and open government intrusion into your life? It's time here.
It's, I think, an additional problem that is discouraging, but really should be a reality check, is that as it comes out that we have been spying on our allies politically, we are losing favor with other governments, and there's a lot of damage control that we need to do. In many ways, this mass surveillance apparatus could be said to make us, in fact, less secure rather than more secure as a nation, because we're over-collecting data. We're not finding the right people. We've had some tragedies. And to make enemies of our political allies is a challenge that really we need to address diplomatically.
Yeah, you're so right. And it's just become totally counterproductive, and it's destructive at this point, undermining security, undermining the welfare of the country, achieving exactly the opposite of what it was intended to do. Time to change course. It's really time to let the sunlight, the disinfectant of sunlight, into what we're doing here and change course. Hey, Heidi, just give us some info, where we find out more about you, where we get your book, and where we start on the path of sanity.
Well, I think that we all have to band together and restore in-person communication, and don't let us be divided by the powers that be. I work at the National Lawyers Guild. Our website is nlg.org, and the book is Spying on Democracy. It's available online at different booksellers, and I hope that people will read it and hope that it's helpful.
Heidi, it's great to have you back on the financialsurvivalnetwork.com. We've got a link to the National Lawyers Guild on financialsurvivalnetwork.com, exactly where you're finding the show notes to this interview. Heidi, always a pleasure. Keep up the great work. It's just great to see an organization like the National Lawyers Guild see its mission evolve over time, from where you started to where you are now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
The show is brought to you by Audible. If you want to listen to it, Audible has it. Would you believe they've got over 100,000 titles in virtually every genre you can think of? And don't forget, you'll get a free audiobook and 30-day trial just for signing up today at audiblepodcast.com/Lutz. That's audiblepodcast.com/LUTZ.
The Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.